live in a twilight world. Today we're going to be talking about black art, also known as the deception industrial complex, which most people don't even know exists. But yeah, man, we'll cover this in this little presentation here. It should be a nice, quick and easy one. I'll start off by bringing up this little fact here. $300 billion has been sent to Ukraine so far. Of that 100 billion is unaccounted for. So that's a third, yeah? A third of the ridiculous amount of money that has gone to Ukraine is unaccounted for. They claim they don't know where it's gone. It's been lost somewhere. Obviously, this is complete bullshit. We know exactly where this has gone. All things that we would put under the umbrella of illusion. Yeah? So theatricality, deception, smoke and mirrors, light and shadow, holograms, actors, props, set dressings, special effects, CGI, and of course, you know, propaganda, white propaganda, grey propaganda, black propaganda, atrocity propaganda, staging provocations, staging atrocities themselves, you know, paying for all of these OSINT, open source intelligence accounts to just be online all day long, flooding social media with either pro-Ukrainian content, pro-Russian content, or, like I said, the whole atrocity propaganda industry, which of course, this is all what we're going to be talking about today, the black arts, yeah, the deception industrial complex, which nobody knows exists, like I said. By the way, I hope you can hear me. I'm sat in my car. We got some heavy rain. Hopefully it's not drowning out my voice. Hopefully it makes some nice ambient sounds in the background. So yeah, man, but it's raining. I only make videos really on rainy days. So where do we start with this? I mean, we could probably do a 10-hour fucking video on going through all of the specific lines of deception that are currently in play right now. Yeah? And of course, we're going to focus on Ukraine, but same applies to Gaza, World War II, World War I, the Gulf War, the Falklands War, the fall of the Soviet Union, Afghanistan, Iraq, you know, all the same stuff, yeah? So, first things first, yeah? The headquarters for the deception industrial complex is the City of London, yeah? Whenever you see a world map, what do you notice? London is always in the centre. Well, that's for obvious reasons, right? They put the 00 line in. They put the Grand Meridian line there through London, which gives them a kind of edge when it comes to geomancy. But we're not going to talk about geomancy for today, right? So yeah, every modern map is pretty much shown like this. England, especially London, is the middle, always. Because you've got to think of it like this. This is the centre of the spider's web. And one thing I like to say is that, you know, the British Empire never died. It became the internet. And I'm not just talking about the internet. I am talking about the internet. Obviously, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Telegram, emails, all of that shit. Undersea cables. Yeah. That version of the internet, but also the other version of the internet, like the interconnected web of organized crime, secret, clandestine, stay behind armies all around the world, bomb makers, assassins. So, you know, these guys and their web, yeah, their internet, their World Wide Web, they've got a network of people that can commit false flags and blow up buildings and give them like a minute-to-minute intelligence reports that are obviously trained in the old school way of doing things, where you communicate via putting encoded messages in newspapers and you know, things like that. This network, yeah, what we call the syndicate, the network of spies, double agents, assassins, bomb makers, terrorists, freedom fighters, that all actually work for the City of London. You know, they're not idiots. They don't use emails. They don't use mobile phones. They don't, you know, they don't have Twitter accounts. So that's how they can run around like ghosts and never get caught, right? But like I said, then there's the other side of it, the actual internet, the digital internet, where of course there are ridiculous amounts of fucking double agents that are working for the City of London that spend all day online diverting eyes and attention to the things they want the world to be looking at. And of course this relates to, and this is why we use the term black art, is because it relates to the old Victorian illusion trick known as black art. We're talking, you know, Victorian era stage magician stuff, yeah, illusionists, whatever you want to call them, right? But black art, so basically, you know, the stage would be covered in like a black velvet, right? The whole background will be covered in a kind of black material, black velvet, whatever. And as you can see here, the assistant, the stagehand, he's wearing clothing made of that same material. So he's now black clad. The magician will wear white. And the objects that he wants to get moved around in his magical trick will be white as well. So this creates a contrast, doesn't it? This is what we talk about between light and shadow in regards to illusion and the magician on the stage, yeah? So, and I'm sure the lighting above, like it's not depicted in this little illustration here, but the lighting above, I'm sure, would be angled at the audience. So that kind of blurs their vision a little bit, which makes this guy here, the stagehand, invisible. Okay? So, of course, the stagehand can start moving around objects that are coloured white. And, you know, the magician will claim that he's doing it via the power of his mind or, you know, through his psychic ability or his magic powers. But really, you know, it's the assistant, the stagehand, that is hidden, that is moving around the props and the set dressings. But you can't see him. He is concealed. He is clandestine. Yeah, he is secret. He is jinn. Jinn means hidden. You've probably seen this concept before in Japanese theatre, like kabuki theatre, right? These guys here, you know, moving stuff around, right? Moving around the costumes. They animate the puppets. They move around the props and the set dressings. But in Japanese theatre, they're not particularly that hidden. Like, you can obviously see them. And it's all part of the magic of Japanese theatre, right? Like, we know they're there, but we just kind of accept that they're not a part of the play, right? Because the people in the play wear very vibrant colours. I will show you like a quick comedy example of this in action, yeah? Have a look at this. They are known as Kuroku in Japanese theatre. And Kuroku, I'm probably saying that wrong, but Kuroku means black clad. Yeah, they wear black so they can hide in the shadows. So I'm sure you guys can get what I'm trying to put forward here, right? That the deception industrial complex is running around in the background, moving everything around, but they are hidden. So when it comes to that missing $100 billion that's gone to Ukraine, it's obviously gone to this kind of stuff. And we'll look at actual examples, yeah? Like I said, I don't want to make this video too long. I don't want to bore people to death. Yeah? Most people now that are looking at my content, you know what I'm getting at. And you probably in some way, shape or form agree with me. You might not agree on every aspect, but you at least comprehend the idea of illusion warfare, that we live in a false reality and there is a hidden hand moving all of the chess pieces around, yeah? So in the beginning of the war, or before it actually even started, the British military sent troops over to Ukraine. And it says here with high-tech weaponry. Now, although they would have sent, officially sent some troops over, we also now know that they kind of sent about 600 commandos unofficially. Yeah? And I know it, you know it, the original story regarding the Battle of Kiev, the idea that 152,000 of Russia's most elite troops had descended on the city and they're about to take it in 24 hours. And they were having intense battles with Ukrainian resistance and all this kind of shit is all a load of bollocks. It was actually these British commandos running around, shooting off fireworks, blowing up bridges, playing air raid sirens, and no doubt would have had something like a 105mm light gun. And just outside of Kiev, they would have been firing what I call theatrical rounds. Rounds that are not high explosives, are actually low explosives, but they contain like magnesium and aluminium. And they're actually bigger, louder, and more spectacular than a regular artillery round. So you're just winging these off, smashing these into empty fields. For the people of Kiev that are looking out in the distance at night time, when they were under curfew, they would have seen like flashes in the distance and they would have believed it was the Russians. But that contingent of British commandos, they would have been put under a black budget. Yeah? So paying for like HGV vehicles to like get them into the country with all of their equipment. This would have been black budget. It wouldn't have gone through the official Ministry of Defense budget. It would have been part of this missing 100 billion. So you would have had to pay for a logistics company, probably like a Polish one, to drive them into Ukraine with all of their equipment, all of their fireworks and their special effects and their pyrotechnics and all that kind of shit. So that's one example of where the black budget would have gone. Also, they probably would have bought a load of Russian uniforms, some old Soviet Russian uniforms. They probably would have purchased, well, we know for a fact they definitely would have purchased some Soviet vehicles, some former USSR vehicles that they would have drove around in the oblasts, in the outskirts of Ukraine, which then they would have filmed themselves doing. And of course, they would have handed that over to the MI6 or the 77th Brigade, who run digital propaganda online. Because if you remember, there was just these weird, something off, but there was these weird videos in the beginning of Ukraine where it'd just be like one old Soviet sort of like armored people carrier just driving through a street, not shooting anything, but just sort of like, and it was like a 10-second video. Well, that would have been all under the black budget. The next example would be, as you'll remember, in the beginning of the Ukraine war, all of these Soviet tanks were placed all around Ukraine, right? The whole idea is that regular civilians would then stand next to them, take a selfie and upload it to social media, yeah? This is why they say Ukraine is a TikTok war. So this young couple here, they're unknowingly being used in the deception campaign. They are taking part in illusion warfare because they would have then uploaded this to TikTok saying, look, here's a Soviet tank, the war is real. Or if someone like me comes along and tries to explain how this is a war based on deception, someone will say, well, I've got a friend of a friend whose mum's dog walker's cousin is in Ukraine and they've got pictures of themselves standing next to a blown up building or a blown up tank. But anyway, like this whole operation of getting all of these ex-Soviet tanks, these heavy armor, out of places like Slovakia, out of places like Poland, Estonia, like they were all sitting around in what we call a tank graveyard. That in itself, the logistics of that, yeah, you would need HGV drivers to drop them all off, and then at a later date, 6 months later, they were all then collected again and then put on display in the middle of Kiev. That in itself would have cost millions, yeah, just the hiring of these drivers, the vehicles, and the whole planning of moving all of these prop set dressing tanks around Ukraine. And then, of course, you would have, like I said, what I call a member of the Ghost Legion, which is probably British Special Forces, would then obviously put a bit of dynamite in the middle and blow it up. So it looks like it's just been hammered by Ukrainian defense. You add whatever story you want to it, right? Another example would be this GoPro footage that's flooded the internet, part of the TikTok war. So essentially, it's not rocket science. You would pull aside maybe 1,000 Ukrainian troops. You'd vet them. You'd make sure that they're willing to do whatever it takes, that they're going to follow orders. And you say to them, right, your job is to stage combat footage. So we're going to put a GoPro on your head. You're going to run around a village. We're going to throw in some smoke grenades. We're going to, give you some real ammunition, but you're just going to run around. You're going to pretend you're having a big shootout with the enemy. And of course, it's all staged. It's all filmed. It's all for the cameras. Yeah? No doubt, once again, like I said, probably a member of the British Special Forces or British Commando will be attached to them. Yeah, along with some sort of a film crew. And you just do it over and over again. You've got to remember that the Ukraine war is a TikTok war. And it's all in these little 2-minute videos. You never see the week before this 2-minute video. You never see the week after this 2-minute video. You never see the lead up. You never see the aftermath. It's just a 2-minute video and then that's it. And then someone online will then merge all them videos together and make maybe an hour-long video, but it's all compartmentalized, yeah? I mean, this is an urban one. This is quite recent, I believe, but there's never an actual enemy, yeah? They're just shooting into the distance. Yeah, this is live action role play. Now, of course, to ask Ukrainian soldiers to take part in this, while the unbeknownst Ukrainian soldiers are still walking around all of Ukraine enforcing a no filming martial law scenario, you're going to have to give them what we call a little brown envelope, aren't you? Yeah? So that they shut their mouth, so they're willing to do it, you give them the little brown envelope, which is cash. You pay them off. You're going to pay them off to be part of the deception. And like I said, it's not just Ukrainians. I got a feeling that Belarus is involved in a lot of this staging of combat footage. Because a Belarusian person could, one day be wearing a Ukrainian uniform, one day be wearing a Russian uniform. The people at home in the West, they're not going to know the difference, are they? They're not going to like zoom into their chin and their beard and say, that's not a Ukrainian, that's a Belarusian. They're all Slavic people, yeah? And if you remember, when the war in Ukraine started, Belarus was shut off. They completely closed their door to everyone, apart from Russia. My theory is, I can't prove it, that's because, like I said, a lot of the forest just above, what's it called? Chernobyl, which is Belarus, is identical to forest that you would find in Ukraine. So all these like videos going around where you see like a Ukrainian guy running through a forest and he comes across a foxhole and he comes from behind and catches two Russian guys. He says, put your hands up, or vice versa. A Russian guy catching two Ukrainian guys in a foxhole. A lot of that's filmed in Belarus. Next up would be like these, I've already spoken about it kind of, but these internet people that are just online all the time promoting the Ukrainian propaganda, all the Russian propaganda. You've got to remember the double cross system, yeah? They fund both sides. But the bloggers, the podcasters, the open source intelligence community, I got a feeling that MI6, most of these guys have like a Patreon, yeah? MI6 is paying them via Patreon, but they'll make up a load of like sock puppet accounts to make sure that money is going into their accounts. So they constantly just spend all day long online, being fact checkers and verifiers, when really they're just paid shills, aren't they? They're shilling, as they say. But there must be just in the English speaking world, there must be over 2,000 of these online people that are propagandists. They won't say that. They'll claim that they're just supporting Ukraine out of the goodness of their heart, and they're standing up for a country that's being bullied by their neighbor and all this kind of shit, and they care about their children. But really, they're getting a lot of money from MI6 to do what they do. I mean, who the fuck's got the time to be doing this kind of stuff? But like I said, this won't be directly, it's not like it'll be direct from an MI6 bank account. They will hide it through other bank accounts. And once again, this is the black budget, part of the black art, part of the deception industrial complex. Then, of course, there's the more obvious ones that you guys already know about, but like the Kiev Independent, a supposed journalist news outlet. Obviously, money's going to be getting, backhanders and brown envelopes are going to be getting thrown to these guys to constantly just keep up the propaganda campaign. Yeah, the psychological warfare side of things. And another one would be United 24. It clearly says here, fundraising platform by the president of Ukraine. Fundraising implies that regular humans are actually contributing to this. But like I said, it's actually the bot army, MI6 or the 77th Brigades. Huge population of digital people that don't actually exist in real life. But no doubt they will have a Facebook, an Instagram account with pictures and AI generated pictures, and they'll have a whole backstory. I'm going to talk about this more in other videos, but this idea that there's 8 billion people on Earth is a massive deception. I would say there's more like 4 billion, but the other 4 billion, which would make 8 billion, they are purely online entities. Yeah? Bots that exist online that appear very real. Okay, like I mean, I've just said this already, but they will have a real profile picture. They will have a real Instagram account, which will have a backstory of pictures that line up with their profile picture, yeah? This is how good AI is now. I mean, it's been this good for about 50 years, but it can generate these images of them, you know, sitting in the park with their family or walking their dog or at a birthday party or out in a nightclub, and they can create a whole backstory. And this is how they sway people out in the real world. Yeah, this is how they own the internet. Like I said, the British Empire never died, it became the internet. So you might disagree with something that's going on in the world stage. All of these online internet entities, which are basically jinn, aren't they, will come and bully you and harass you and try and sway you into believing what they believe, making it look like you're the outsider, that the herd disagrees with you. But they're a bunch of MI6 77th Brigade bots that don't exist in the real world. Another obvious one that, you know, you guys probably already know, you don't need me to tell you about it, but you're going to be paying off the brigadiers, the major generals that are in charge of the brigades, aren't you? Yeah, a brigade is about 5,000 men. As long as the brigadier who's in charge of them plays ball and does what he's told to do, then you're going to carry on this stupid war and you're going to prolong it. You can't be having a brigadier taking his own initiative and actually going and winning the war. That's the last thing they want, right? I mean, to be fair, to join the military, you have to follow orders. To get yourself up to brigadier level, you've proven that you follow orders. So most of them won't be taking backhanders anyway. But then again, it depends. I don't know. Maybe what they're getting asked to do is so ridiculous and backwards that they're going to have to give the brigadier a brown envelope. Here's $1 million. Shut your mouth. Don't talk to anyone. Just go along with the plan. Don't cause any problems for us. And you'll be, you know, and you'll be well looked after, yeah? Because, you know, the way the military is structured, it goes up like a pyramid, doesn't it? You have privates at the bottom, lance corporal, sergeant major. It goes up and up the pyramid to the point where it's just one person in charge of a big, large number of men. As long as he does what he's told to do by his handler in the intelligence department. So, for example, there might be a depopulated village in Ukraine, in the Donbass region. The brigadier will be told, right, next Monday, I want you to pull all of your troops out. And the brigadier might say, why? So they'll say, don't worry about that, you know. We're going to use you in an operation. We need you in an operation further up the road. Just pull your troops out. Worry about what's going to happen next when we meet you and we debrief you. Then they'll call up the Russian opposition, that brigadier, and they'll say, right, on Wednesday, you're going to move into that village. So how it's happening is these battalions, brigades, they're constantly moving around each other, but never actually coming into contact with each other, right? They keep a distance from each other like two magnets that can't be pushed together. And all they do is they just throw drones at each other. The war in Ukraine, intensity-wise, is about a 2 out of 10, but via the power of illusion, they're making it look like a 10 out of 10, right? And to create that illusion, the deception industrial complex is at work. Yeah? So once again, paying off these brigadiers, paying off these people in the intelligence agency to follow the plan that has been set out by the City of London and their counterparts in Moscow, you're going to be handing out packets of cash in brown envelopes. Once again, this all comes under the black budget. And that is where the 100 billion is going, or is gone. You know, the $100 billion they claim is missing. Another mention as well, yet again, you guys know this, the Kiev military mafia that is running that country. These guys have made billions themselves. It's not even a secret, is it? Yeah. Zelensky's made billions and his little cronies have made billions, yeah? There was, you know, Ukraine, even before the war, has had a long history of corruption. Because ever since 1991, when the Soviet Union collapsed, Ukraine has been a very poor country. And lots of money has been poured into Ukraine, yet it never seems to go to Ukraine. So Ukraine's got its own National Corruption Investigation Organization, which conveniently has been kind of shut down ever since this war started in 2022. You know, how convenient. And I think even though they might be up and running now, they're just getting blocked in every which way, right? Because, you know, it's obvious. The Zelensky team, the Kiev military mafia running Ukraine, are the most corrupt bunch of scumbags going. Embezzlement, blackmail, bribery, or you name it. It's not even a secret. Everyone knows it, yeah? It also should be said that when Zelensky became Prime Minister of Ukraine, he went over to London and he didn't meet the Prime Minister. He went and met the head of MI6, Richard Moore. I can't remember what the year that was, but, you know, no doubt when he was meeting with the chief of MI6, he was getting prepped on the war that was going to come in a few years' time and what his role would be, you know? The most well-paid actor, comedian on planet Earth right now, Zelensky. Also, another thing that should be mentioned, all of Zelensky's security team were trained by the SAS, the Special Air Service, the secret, well, not secret, but the Special Forces of Britain. So everything about this war is City of London, is corrupt, is deception. It involves, once again, the phantom menace that everyone is looking for is the British Empire, which most people think doesn't exist anymore. The greatest trick the devil ever played was convincing people he doesn't exist. The same goes for the British Empire. They've convinced people they don't exist, and they've managed via the internet to always lay the blame on the CIA and the Jews. Yeah? Israel and Washington always get the blame for the activities that the British Empire is doing, and especially when it comes to the deception industrial complex. I'm going to wrap this video up now because I'm getting, you know, when you get sick of the sound of your own voice where you've been fucking yapping on so long. So, the deception industrial complex has shipping containers full to the brim of things like surgically accurate mannequins, yeah, mannequins that have a pulse, they bleed, they've got fingerprints, yeah. They've just got shipping containers full of them. So these obviously get planted around war zones. So they'll chuck a load in a building, blow up the building, and there'll be limbs and all this kind of shit everywhere, right? Now, I don't know how they do it. I imagine they hide. I imagine all around the world in these dockyards, they will have their own little section which contains their stuff. So it means they're ready to go all around the world. Every continent, Africa, Europe, Asia, the Middle East. And they're obviously just going to use regular shipping, cargo ships. Yeah, they're going to use civilian cargo planes, heavy lifters. But I'm pretty sure if it come down to it, they could use the US military, which probably has, I don't know off the top of my head, over 100 of these C-17 Globemasters, or they could use the British military, the Royal Air Force, that has some of these, and they also have the Airbus Atlas. You know, if it come down to it, they would have backup plans to get all of their equipment to wherever it's got to go. So right now, you know, things are kicking off. Supposedly things might kick off in Iran. Yeah? I guarantee you, the weeks ahead of the potential kickoff date, the Ghost Legion, when I say the Ghost Legion, I'm talking about the foot soldiers of the Hidden Hand, of the Deception Industrial Complex, would have got all of their equipment into Iran. Not necessarily with military aircraft, because that's a bit obvious. That's, I think, if I had to guess, that's a bit of a last resort. But probably just regular cargo ships, you know, on the ocean. Or, you know, civilian private transporter aircraft like this one, for example. The Russian Antonov, or the Rublin. I'm probably saying that wrong, but yeah. So there we go. I've given you a few examples of where that missing $100 billion has gone, yeah? The Deception Industrial Complex. It needs funding. You got to pay these actors off. Yeah, the special effects, the CGI, the smoke and mirrors, the theatricality, the propaganda, staging atrocities, it all costs money. Yeah, and you've got to keep that hidden from the public. People would go insane if they found out that NATO, the EU, the British government, the US government was paying to stage atrocity videos. They were paying to have soldiers running around like actors with GoPro cameras on their heads. Yeah, you're paying to have these online influencers constantly giving energy, time and attention to the staged atrocities, the staged combat footage. It's got to be kept hidden. Yeah, it's got to be kept in the dark. That's why we call it black art. We live in a twilight world. There are no friends at dusk.